Have everyone in here, so we'll go ahead and get started. Daniel?
Thank you, David. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our third installment of the VJF Monthly Meeting for Partners. Today, we're just going to go over just a brief review of updates that have taken place since our last session. We're going to cover how to schedule a VJF event. More specifically, we had a request during our last session to kind of give a more thorough overview of requesting assistance from Illinois WorkNet versus adding your own VJF event. Furthermore, we're going to cover how to coordinate a multi-employer VJF event and direct you to some resources that can be helpful in that pursuit. We'll then open it up for hopefully a robust Q&A session. We'll also allow previous partners to have an opportunity to share some of their experiences, what they took away from the event, best practices, so on and so forth. You'll see up on the screen right now, we have some upcoming events, and we would like to encourage you to register for those so you can kind of get a inside view as to how some of those multi-employer VJF events take place. And then just kind of a last thing that I'd like to note before we begin is you'll see there that second event for State Senator Ram Villavilam. That will actually take place, one of those sessions will take place on a Friday where we would normally hold our VJF monthly meeting session. So we will be rescheduling that session to the following Friday. So please be on the lookout for that altered event invite, if you will. So the first thing that I want to show you all, and again, I believe we covered this during our last session, but if you scroll down to the footer here on Illinois WorkNet, it's this Partner Resources tab. And again, you scroll down here to the Virtual Job Fair Guide. You'll see all of the resources regarding the virtual job fair that we have available here on Illinois WorkNet. You go to this far right tab here that says Partner Tool Updates. You'll see all of the updates that have been rolled out on a monthly or semi-monthly basis. You'll see we're pretty lean here for updates in December, just because of the holidays and a lot of programmers were out on vacation. But the one primary thing that I want to direct your attention to is this first bullet point here. And that is that we have integrated automated monthly emails to be sent to employer booth contacts. And the reason that we did this was just to make sure that we were getting the most up-to-date and accurate information possible as we could. What we were running into, unfortunately, is obviously we would have broken links, outdated information on those employer booths. So we just wanted to make sure that that was addressed and that we have the most up-to-date information that is available. So the next thing that I wanted to cover with you all, and I believe this was actually directed to us during our last session from an attendee, was kind of covering the process of requesting assistance versus adding your own virtual job fair event. So I just, kind of as a disclaimer, I want to say this is all kind of predicated on the assumption that the employer already has an active employer booth on Illinois WorkNet. So in order to access this, you're going to want to go to this My Dashboard drop-down menu. You'll see here this virtual job fair logo. You'll click on that. And then for the employer, they would more than likely only have access to their, respective booth. So just for, the sake of example here, we'll use Memorial Health System. They would click on this gray booth details icon, scroll down, and you'll see here this Add Virtual Job Fair tab. They would click on that, and then a prompt would come up that says Add New Job Fair. You'll see there's two tabs here. The first one is Request Assistance Hosting a Virtual Job Fair. The second one is Add My Own Virtual Job Fair. We'll go ahead and click on this first one. And you'll see here when they click to request assistance in setting up a virtual job fair, they'll be given, or they'll be redirected, to this prompt that you see here up on the screen. There'll be, a bunch of required fields that you'll see here that they'll have to enter: contact name, phone number, email. They'll be asked, multiple questions one of which including, do they want assistance with setting up training for Zoom? Do they want an overview of the VJF platform before they, hold their event? Do they have a preferred date or date range for their live event? They have the option here to select some predetermined times for their event. They also have an option, as you'll see here, to enter in another time if, the ones that are available do not work for their schedules. They have the option here to select if they want a single employer event, as you'll see here, only my company organization during the live session, or they also have the option to opt into, the process of planning a multi-employer event. They also have the option here, as you see, to select breakout rooms, select target populations. If there is language assistance that is needed, by marking this, we can make sure that we have a translator present. And then they'll click submit. And what that will do is at that point, we will get a prompt on our end at Illinois WorkNet here. With the request, we'll review the request, make sure that all of the information is accurate, make sure that, we're able to accommodate, any information that they've put in here. Assuming that's the case, we reach out to them. We set up kind of initial overview and next steps meeting. When we have that meeting, then we just determine, when the date and time would be, what their vision is for the event. Is it going to be region-based, industry-based, so on and so forth. So that is what the process of requesting assistance looks like for the employer. And then just to kind of elaborate on what that provides for them, as many of you may already know, what that request assistance triggers is that triggers obviously all of the weight and the resources that Illinois WorkNet has available for the employers for their VJF. So that includes access to the Zoom, business Zoom account that Illinois WorkNet has that allows them to have up to 1,000 participants in a meeting. We set those meetings up. We send out the invitations or the email invites to the employers. We also do social media promotion, on our respective pages. So that would be Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, so on and so forth. We also put that up on the event calendar for virtual job fair events on Illinois WorkNet too. So all of that is included when they request assistance. The next tab you'll see here is this Add My Own Virtual Job Fair tab. So if we click on that, you'll see the process there is a lot less thorough. They will be prompted to enter a start date, as you'll see here, an end date, a job fair URL, and that will be, whatever platform that they're deciding to use. So that could be Zoom, that could be WebEx, so on and so forth. And then they also have an option here to add an archived fair or job fair URL, with whatever recording that they, had from the event. And so then also, just as a side note to make clear, as you can imagine, when they request, to hold their own event, all of the things that I discussed that are triggered when they do request assistance are not offered. So, Illinois WorkNet doesn't directly get involved in the planning process whatsoever. All we provide is kind of the platform for them to amplify, the outreach that's taking place for their event. It'll be on their employer booth. But again, we will not be directly facilitating any of the event for them. They will be doing so. Their employer booth will just act again as a medium that will hopefully amplify, the outreach that they are conducting for their own event. So that's just kind of an overview of that. And if you have any questions regarding that or would like me to cover something additionally there, please feel free to enter those into the chat. And once we get to the Q&A portion, hopefully we will be able to get those answered for you. The next thing that I wanted to cover here was just kind of an overview of what the multi-employer virtual job fair planning process looks like. And so again, if you scroll down here to this partner resources page, go to that virtual job fair guide, go to all resources here, this full list of resources tab. You'll see these three columns here: guidance, instructions, VJF planning. The one that you're going to really want to hone in or focus in on if you're, seeking at any point to conduct a multi-employer event, wanting to coordinate with employers to set one up, you'll want to look at this column right here. This has basically a comprehensive listing of all of the templates and documents that we have to assist you kind of in that venture. So you'll see here, we have a multi-employer VJF inventory sheet, a checklist timeline, a PowerPoint that is meant to acquaint employers with the virtual job fair tool, and a template to collect employer information. And what I'm going to do, just so you all can see this, will be just click on a few of these templates so you get an idea what this looks like. So first and foremost, some of the partners or agencies that have worked with us before will probably be familiar with this checklist timeline that you see here. If you give me one moment, I will open that. And so what you'll see here up on the screen is this kind of timeline document that we have created and honed as we have done more and more of these events. And you'll see here, typically speaking, for a multi-employer VJF, we ask that you give a 4-week lead time in order to adequately plan the event. In some cases, if there's going to be multiple sessions, we ask that you give 5 weeks advance notice, just so we make sure we have an opportunity to get all of the details finalized. We're able to reach out to employers, coordinate with them, make sure that everything is squared away before the event takes place. So we'll just briefly go through this document here. You'll see 4 weeks out. We'll set the date and time for the event. What we'll do here is decide if the VJF is going to be region or industry specific. We'll establish a stakeholder. So is it going to be SIU? Is it going to be a respective agency? Is it going to be an employer? We'll determine those things once we do those initial VJF planning sessions. We'll see here next, we'll decide on a format. Is it going to be multiple sessions? Is it going to be a single day session? Are we going to have a panel discussion? So on and so forth. You'll see next we have invite employers to participate. And that'll be established kind of once we decide on these first 2 items that you see here. During that planning process, we'll also identify, prime employers that we'd like to reach out to invite to participate in the multi-employer VJF event, You'll see there we also have listed a lot of those resources that are available on that partner guide page that I just showed you. So, there's a link there to a guide on how to prepare for a VJF, what to expect when attending a VJF, an overview of, Illinois workNet's VJF tool, including a recorded presentation and then also that employer PowerPoint that I referenced earlier. Kind of the next step there will be to have employers set up a booth. And again, we have this link here that you can share with employers when you're conducting your initial outreach with them. That just kind of gives them an instructional guide as to how to create, how to navigate, how to edit an employer booth on Illinois workNet. We'll designate time slots, and that will go on the registration page so job seekers know if there's a particular employer that they'd like to meet with, they know exactly when they should, plan to show up to the event. And you'll see just kind of an illustrative example here of that screenshot from one of our prior events here. 3 weeks out, you'll see we will want to kind of set a defined schedule. We'll want to make sure that that's squared away. So what's put it on the registration page accurately reflects, when the event is going to take place. We're going to want to confirm that employers have their employer booths set up. And then what we're also going to want to do is identify some backup employers, if you will, just to make sure that if we have anyone, let's say we've identified 8 to 10 businesses that want to participate in a multi-employer event. In the event, that a few back out, we want to make sure that we have a few in reserve, that we can integrate into the event if need be, just so we do not have to scale down the size and scope of the event. 3 weeks out, we'll also want to schedule Zoom trainings, assuming that the employers want to conduct them. In my experience, we do like to, emphasize that employers do, take advantage of those Zoom trainings if possible, just because by the time we get to the live event, they just, at least in our experience, seem to be a lot more comfortable with navigating not only the Zoom platform, but then they also know kind of how the flow of the event's going to take place. They're more comfortable, so on and so forth. You'll see here 2 weeks out, we'll actually conduct those Zoom trainings. We'll do any last minute edits on the registration page on Eventbrite that need to take place. We'll be sure, obviously, as I stated before, to post the event on the Illinois workNet VJF event calendar and their employer booth as well. 1 week out, we'll send the employers just kind of a comprehensive email that has all of the meeting information that they're going to need in order to attend the event. So that'll include a link to the registration page. That'll include a link to the actual Zoom meeting. That'll include a schedule and an outline, and just some various other information that they'll need that tends to be helpful in navigating these events. We'll also make sure that we're posting the event on social media in order to promote and increase awareness. And again, like I stated before, we'll use our social media channels to kind of do that. And we do encourage employers and agency partners alike to share those posts that we make, just so, again, we're amplifying, the effect that, our marketing efforts have, and that we hopefully get an increased turnout from doing so. And you'll see here, it's kind of as a final note, 2 days before, we'll send out reminder emails, make sure that the employers have calendar invites, make sure that they are, ready to attend the event. And then the final kind of piece here is just getting presentation materials, making sure that we're integrating that into kind of the larger comprehensive PowerPoints that we like to have. And we like to make sure that we get those, typically speaking, no more than 48 hours in advance. So we just want to make sure, the sooner we can get those presentation materials, the better. So we're ready to go, and we make sure, that we don't have any technical issues on the actual day of the event. So that is just kind of an overview of what the multi-employer timeline checklist provides, and kind of what the expectations are, if you will, in setting up these events. So if you have any questions regarding any of that, please, again, feel free to enter those into the chat section, or bring them up during the Q&A session that we'll have here shortly. One other thing, well, actually a couple other things that I'd like to make note of is this template here to collect employer information. And those who have worked with us, again, should be pretty familiar with this. You'll see here, this is just kind of a Excel template that we've created, kind of capturing all of the information that we, at least in our experience, have determined to be helpful, in tracking these events, and then also conducting any follow-up that needs to take place thereafter. And you'll see here, if you just take a quick look at this example here has it broken up by day. You'll see this in particular highlights an industry, if it's industry based. Here, under this confirmed pending column that you'll see here, will just be the, confirmation status of the employers who have been targeted to participate. This will be where we put the actual business name in, and we won't go, in this ad nauseum, but you can see here all of the information that up on the top is what we seek to collect, just to make sure that, we have all of our bases covered when we are going into these events. We have a way to contact these folks, whether it's email, phone. We have a way to see if they want Zoom training to be conducted. We have a way to see how many open positions they have available, who the actual presenter will be on the day of the event, so on and so forth. So I would definitely encourage you, if you all are planning at some point in 2021 to plan one of these multi-employer events, to take a look at this template and utilize it as well. And so I believe that's just kind of an overview of the multi-employer VJF event kind of planning process that we've got here. Again, if you have any questions over the two things that were covered, please feel free to bring them up in the chat, or unmute yourself and ask the question directly. At this point, what we'll go ahead and do is just kind of transition into that Q&A portion. So if anyone has any questions, comments, feedback, experience that they'd like to share, please feel free to bring that up now.
Good morning, everybody. This is Marion Beatty. I'm with the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership. You all have done some excellent work in working with us and partnering, and we've gotten some great hires from this platform. One of the things I'd like to ask Dave is I have a large employer. Instead of having different employers, you said to have 8 to 10 rooms, is there a possibility that this one employee, hold on a minute, please. I have a grandson in the back. That's what you hear. Is there
Nope.
any way, is there any way possible that this large employer could have an employment opportunity in those 8 rooms with their talent acquisition person, screening and hiring right then and there? Or is it set up where we need at least 8 employers and one HR person? Please expound upon that.
Yeah, absolutely, Marion. So I think kind of what you're getting at is, are you talking about holding a single employer VJF event where breakout rooms would be conducted, or like one-on-one interview sessions? Is that what you're asking, rather than
Yeah,
taking part in a multi-employer event?
yes, yes. And the
Okay,
reason
yes.
why I asked that, because this employer is humongous, and they may have different talent people have to pre-screen. They have
Mhm.
different segments in their employmentship that one talent acquisition person would not be the person for that employment opportunity. That would let me know how to come back to them now if we were only able to let them be an employer with their own identifiable room, then I could go to them with that knowledge, and we could use that talent acquisition HR person to do the majority of the screening for the employment opportunities that they may have open, and do another one next month and another one next month and another one next month.
Right.
So what would be the best to move forward with this type of employer?
So that's a great question, Marion. And I will say that we have had this question actually come up recently. I do want to say, full disclosure, we have not actually held an event using that format before. I know there are some kind of concerns and reservations in doing so, just making sure that there's kind of equity and access between employers, if they're kind of a smaller mom and pop business versus, if they're a large, multinational corporation, if you will. So we do have a little bit of concerns there, but that is something that we have had discussed integrating, kind of moving into 2021. I do want to say also, as far as, we've had this question come up as well. Can we allow for a screening process, or a process where folks can upload a resume or other sort of materials like that? That is not something that we have currently in our system either, but it is something that we are exploring. So I know that's not a direct answer to your question, Marion. And I do have my colleague David on here as well. So I don't know if David has any thoughts on, how we move forward in addressing that. But those are just kind of some thoughts that we've had and some experiences that we've had.
Not to take away from the time being spent, we don't, I'm sure you have other people on the line, but I think you were very forthcoming, stating that this is something that you need to talk about. And I think it's something that needs to be addressed, because it just gives you, it doesn't take over your format here. It gives you another format to help our communities, okay? So again, it's not taken away from the format that you all have planned, which is great right here. But if you have those large companies that have the time and have the employment opportunities, that also, from an equity point of view, goes into our communities. And the most important thing with any format that we have is getting people hired. Okay. So a lot of times we can think outside the box and put people in different boxes of where they're fitting, but you still give them the advantage of having a platform like this, which has proven to be very successful. So I wouldn't take away the small business, the large business, the equity of what we're finding. I would just look at it as a overall, and broadening the VJF monthly to be able to have other formats also, which a lot of us have had to change, tweak, and do during this pandemic. I'm hospitality, so I've had to do a lot of changing and outreach and empowering and looking at different ways to do things for my industry. So I think you and Dave, and maybe you did answer my question, can look at it not as the format that we want to change, but the format we want to add.
This is David Garvey. Absolutely, Marion. As a matter of fact, we're
Hey,
actually,
David.
hi. We're actually, I got some things that I'm actually mocking up for enhancements kind of throughout the system, for all users. And so that, I don't want to get too into the weeds with that, but that will, I think, just make the system, a lot more, easier for all the audiences to, access and use. But as far as kind of having those screening rooms, at least for now, we have had a couple of events where we've had those breakout rooms where, the first portion of the event was the employers presenting about their organization. And then, kind of the latter half would have these breakout rooms. And due to Zoom's, at least current, features and capabilities, as far as management of all of the rooms, it only comes down to one person. And there was a release recently that said, they're kind of expanding that so more people can, accommodate and manage the breakout rooms. Because for now, we've had it about 8 to about 10 companies for each of those
Right,
events where we have the breakout rooms. Because I think
right.
that kind of is about the max for, one person to manage. But and we do need to test, some of these features too with these updates. If it does turn out that, multiple people and, workforce staff can also, manage these rooms. And I think we can make those events, we can open it up to a larger number of employers, more rooms per employer, so that is something that we're going to take a look into. And, fingers crossed, if that is the case, then, we can certainly increase the events, success with participation and making those connections and screening.
I appreciate that. And we'll talk more offline, maybe do some brainstorming about that type of event. So I appreciate you, Dave, and thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Marion, and thank you, David, for kind of expounding on that a little bit more. We did get a question in the chat here. This individual asked, what is the max number of businesses that can participate in a VJF at one time? Short answer is that varies depending on the format of the session, if that makes sense. So obviously a single employer event, that's going to be one employer. If we're talking about multi-employer events, it depends if we're holding multiple sessions or a single day session. So for example, we've had a single day session. Those typically tend to have 8 to 10 employers, especially if we are taking into consideration breakout rooms. We just want to make sure that we have the adequate amount of staff available to monitor those and make sure that that process goes smoothly. If we're looking at a multi-session event, we had one recently with IDES for Veterans Day during the week of Veterans Day. We had almost 50 employers, total for that week-long event. So it can vary, it varies the spectrum. And it just really depends what your vision is, what your goals are, and what you seek to accomplish. Any other questions that anyone else has on the call? Thoughts, concerns, feedback, anything that you'd like to share as far as your experience and perhaps holding one of these events, working with Illinois WorkNet, so on and so forth.
Good morning. This is Tanya Cody Robinson from the partnership. Good morning, team.
Hey,
I found that we're working on, I want to say maybe our 5th or 6th events together with the partnership. And some of the takeaways that we've had, this project is really growing, to Marion's point as well. We've integrated some great processes. What I would say to this team, if you're considering a virtual job fair, consider on the front end, because Daniel and David, they do an awesome job, but they're just a team of two. And so what we're doing is strengthening this muscle, so to speak, find ways to integrate their marketing, in terms of your brand, your partners, et cetera, into whatever media and text campaign or email campaigns that you may have within your organization. Like within the partnership, we have our Who's Hiring Now page, our text and email campaign, and many times, depending on how we're using the strategy and marketing, we're able to move our enrollment for an event on a Monday with maybe 3 people. On a Thursday or Friday, we boost it up to maybe 350 people. That's been my experience. So knowing when to pull a trigger in terms of the marketing efforts and all of the work that the gentlemen are putting in on the front end really helps in the success in terms of educating the job seekers and getting the employers ready for the event. Also, to the point that Daniel and David mentioned, what we found in many of these events, especially with the breakout rooms, look at this virtual, look at your internal talent pool in terms of volunteering to help with your event in the same way that you would do, look at it in a virtual way in the same way that you would do in a face-to-face event. So for instance, in our breakout rooms, what we have found is in the transitioning and the scheduling in the document that our project leads have presented, sometimes we need to have people to kind of be greeters and kind of serve as gatekeepers and timekeepers. So what we found is if we have for every one employer, we want to at least have one supportive person to monitor the breakout room and the scheduling. So per one employer in your plan, you want to have 2 supporting workforce staff to assist Daniel and David in the transition as we're kind of growing this wonderful model that we're using in terms of virtual job fairs. In our coordination in the events that I've mentioned that we have held, we have really implemented, and I'm very excited about tracking information that we know that's pertinent to what we need as workforce practitioners. So people of color, regional areas, community areas. In our upcoming events for the senator events, I don't know if it started before then, Daniel, David, you'll be able to expound on that, but we've implemented processes that we know and what we've heard from the level from our workforce practitioners, and we've implementing more reporting documents other than just the phone number, the email. So we have more follow-up data in our post-event roster, so to speak, that we get after the event so that we can, as workforce practitioners, follow up and track with the employer and the job seekers as well. So I found it as a way that this is a wonderful tool. It's still in the making in less than a year. It's a great way that we could simplify our efforts without reinventing the wheel. So I found within our team, within the BREAD team, business relations and economic development, we are able to move our talent pipeline list from one project to another. And we take that time to collect information on our end, such as the resume, et cetera, and enter that information into whatever platform that we have. And with our local workforce area, we have Career Connect. So it's simplifying our ways as we're integrating technology with collecting the data that we need for our funding sources, as well as to work with our partners in building this wonderful model in terms of virtual job fairs. So that's my input with it. I'm excited about the virtual job fair concept, such as my employers are as well. I'm excited about creating larger events, as my colleague Miriam mentioned, with like the one employer partner where we could run several rooms. And I have a big employer who's expressing those same accommodations. But I'm seeing a lot of synergy and a lot of excitement because in our new work world and our new normal, there's more remote access positions. So we have to really connect with what's happening now in order to be successful in the work that we're doing. And it was one other comment. Oh, and with the senators events that's coming up in the first week of February, we've implemented things that we know that we have taken away in our virtual job fairs, such as information sessions on the front end. How does job seekers coordinate, operate in a virtual job fair? Then we have another one about information sessions with the company, and then the smaller interviews. So we're able to be creative and innovative and test with our partners at SIU to really get what we really need to have in this change in time. So those are my comments, and I'm excited about it. And I'm sorry if I didn't mention, I'm Tanya Cody Robinson, Business Relations Specialist at the partnership.
Thank you so much for that Fantastic and thorough response, Tanya. A lot of bases were covered there, and it's much appreciated.
Thank
And
you.
you sharing your experience with the folks who are on the call here today. As Tanya stated, this tool, if you will, was rolled out, less than a year ago. I think we're going on a little bit over 7 months or so. So, a lot of the processes, a lot of the formats, so on and so forth, is still in flux. We're still learning our best practices and processes, but I would like to think our team is flexible. We're willing to try new things. As Tanya stated, this upcoming event for the state senator, we're going to integrate pre-event workshops. We're going to have separate informational sessions for employers to share, information about their company, position, so on and so forth, which is a format some of you might be already familiar with. And then we're going to have just a single dedicated session to the one-on-one interviews, if you will. So we're going to see how that format works. If it is a success, then we will definitely be utilizing it moving forward. Any other questions that anyone has, concerns, feedback, thoughts? If there are no more questions, I would like to direct your attention up to the screen there. You'll see we have some upcoming events. I would highly encourage you to register for those events, sit in on those events, just to see how kind of the process flow is. Familiarize yourself with a multi-employer VJF, so if you're wanting to acquaint yourself with the process, if you are perhaps interested in holding a VJF event sometime in 2021, it'll just give you a better idea or a grasp on the process, what to expect, so on and so forth. And I believe David's actually going to share a link to that registration page for the Troy, Maryville, St. Jacob Marine Chamber of Commerce VJF that's coming up at the end of January. And the state senator event, just for your information, we are in the process of creating a registration page for that, but it is not yet live. So once that is the case, we will be sure to share that with you all as well. And if you'd like to register for that and see how those sessions go, you will be able to do so at that time. Looks like we did have somebody just join the session. We're opening it up to questions. If you have any before we kind of finish out here today, please feel free to share those with us. Okay, well, if anyone has any final thoughts, please feel free to share those. If not, I believe we can go ahead and close out our session here for today.
Hi, Daniel, it's Deb. I'm the one that just joined, but I've attended some of your other wonderful workshops. My question to you is, if we assist an employer in creating their presence on Get Hired Illinois, and then we transfer ownership, can we still add a virtual event on their behalf, or do they have to do it themselves?
So I'm assuming you didn't mean job link, you probably meant Illinois WorkNet, correct? First off.
Yes, the Get Hired Illinois virtual job fair.
Okay, gotcha. Yes. So to answer your question, at least as far as my understanding is, once you transfer ownership or managerial capacity of the booth, so to speak, to that designated HR rep or what have you from the company, they will be the ones that will have to add that event themselves. So short answer is no. Once that's been transferred, you will not be able to add an event on their behalf.
Great, that answers my question. Thank you.
Fantastic.
And I do want to add something that we are looking into is updating that, managerial capacity. So currently it's only one contact, like Daniel said, but we do want to increase that number because, if that one person in the organization, leaves, then, there's no backup. So that is an enhancement that we do want to make so that, we can have others in the organization or, other partners who work closely with that employer to be able to, manage that booth if need be.
That's great, because besides them leaving, they might be on vacation or sick or anything else.
Right. Right.
Daniel, if I may,
Yeah.
Theodore Duckett, I would just add that if a person looked at the site 9 months ago, 5 months ago, the flexibility that you've gained is immense. And I think they would be surprised to see how much different it looks than from the initial inception of this platform. So I think anyone should come in and look at any of these two events that are coming up so they can see what enhancements have already occurred.
I totally agree.
Fantastic. Thank you both. And as David stated, this tool is in a constant state of flux, at least at the moment. He has been working on a lot of mock-ups to improve the tool, make it more seamless, add additional features, so on and so forth. So as soon as those are rolled out and those are put in place, we will of course share that with you all, on one of these monthly, partner meetings, just to make sure that you are all apprised of kind of the new features and updates that the tool has to offer. But we have some pretty cool things in the works that we think will help streamline the process and make things easier. Also allow for more informational access for partners who have worked with us as well. So just kind of be on the lookout for those.
Oh, I have a quick question. I received an invite. Our monthly meeting next month will be held on the 12th, but some of our agencies will be closed on that day. Do we want to still keep that date, or do we want to move it to another date?
That's a great point. Thank you, Tanya. I know, as I stated kind of at the beginning of the webinar here, we will be conducting that event on the 5th, you'll see, for the state senators. So we will be unable to hold our session then. Good point on the other day. So I don't know, David, do you have any thoughts as to rescheduling our next kind of partner session?
Yeah, I think we can go ahead and push that back a week to the 19th. And so then I think what I would do moving forward is, to kind of space out the events. I think I'll, maybe do some rearranging for the next few monthly sessions, but at least for February, yeah, we can, I think, go ahead and push that back to the 19th then.
Now, I'm not trying to be an overachiever here, but is there any way that we could move it up a day to possibly the 11th?
We could do that as well.
Okay.
Looking at the calendar, yeah, we can just do that for the 11th then.
Okay, and then we could just keep the momentum going.
Yeah,
just a recommendation.
I like it though.
Okay.
Okay, so David will get that invite updated and sent out to you all. So please be on the lookout for that. Make sure that you accept that request so you, stay apprised of when our next meeting is going to take place. In the meantime, we hope that you have a great day, great weekend, and we look forward to our next session. Hopefully we will have a lot of new updates to present to you all. Thank you, everyone.
I have one more comment for our WIOA agencies in terms of logos, because I know Daniel and I and David and our Earthstone, there's a certain pixel of logos, whereas with the partnership it's one size, and then you all have a pixelated, is it 100 by 100? So if you're doing your employer recruitment, I would suggest that we collect the logos on the front end as well.
That's a great point. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, David and Daniel. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.